freight train derailed in a small town in Ohio. What followed made national news for weeks. The town was called East Palestine, population 4,700. People who lived there went to sleep that night not knowing their lives were about to change permanently. Most people who followed this story know the basic facts: the derailment, the chemical fire, the evacuation, the black cloud. But here is something that has never been fully explained. On the night of the crash, the train had been showing warning signs for over 20 miles before it derailed. 3 sensors detected it. The train never stopped. And 4 months before East Palestine, a disturbingly similar sequence played out on a different Norfolk Southern train in Ohio. Same sensor, same pattern, same outcome. After that first crash, nothing was changed. So the question isn't just what happened in East Palestine. The question is, why was it allowed to happen? And who benefited from a system that made it possible? That is what this video is about. "8:54 p.m. East Palestine, Ohio. A Norfolk Southern freight train, 150 cars, 18,000 tons, nearly 2 miles long, derails on the edge of town. 38 cars leave the tracks. Fire erupts immediately. Within minutes, the sky is orange. The blaze is visible from 10 miles away. 11 of the derailed cars are carrying hazardous materials. 5 of them are loaded with vinyl chloride, a colorless, flammable gas that is a known human carcinogen. 2,000 residents evacuate that night. 3 days later, February 6th, officials make a decision that will define everything that follows. They deliberately open the tank cars and set fire to 115,000 gallons of vinyl chloride, on purpose, above a residential town. A massive black cloud rises over East Palestine. What most people watching the news footage did not know: burning vinyl chloride produces dioxins, compounds so toxic that exposure to even trace amounts carries long-term health risks that researchers are still working to quantify. The evacuation zone expands. More residents flee. That cloud was not an accident. That was a decision, and the NTSB later found it was an unnecessary one. The chemical contamination spreads. Waterways near the site turn brown. More than 43,000 fish die downstream. Chemicals travel 270 miles down the Ohio River. Residents return home days later. Many report rashes, nausea, headaches, trouble breathing. Norfolk Southern eventually settles lawsuits for over $600 million. No admission of wrongdoing. And as of today, trains carrying the same chemicals still pass through East Palestine more than twice a week. That is the story everyone knows. Now here is the part that has never been fully explained. This crash was not random. There were warnings. Someone received them. And the system that was supposed to stop this train was designed in a way that made it easy to keep going instead. Let's go back. 40 minutes before the crash, 20 miles up the track. Because what happened that night did not start in East Palestine. It started in a living room somewhere in Atlanta, Georgia. There is one person whose job it is to watch the sensors. All of them. Every hot bearing detector across Norfolk Southern's entire national rail network. That night, he is working from home. No formal break schedule, no supervisor in the room. Just him, a screen, and thousands of miles of track. One person, the entire country, from a living room. At some point that evening, an alert comes in from a detector in Salem, Ohio. Car 23, wheel bearing temperature, 103 degrees above ambient. He checks it against Norfolk Southern's internal threshold, below the number that requires stopping the train. He marks it non-critical and goes back to watching the rest of the network. Here is what he could not have known. Security camera footage, retrieved later by NTSB investigators from private homes along the route, showed that at the exact moment that Salem sensor was reading 103 degrees, visible sparks and signs of distress were already coming from underneath car 23. The NTSB's final report identified this as one of the central failures of the night. The sensor was doing exactly what it was designed to do, but surface temperature does not always reflect what is happening deeper inside. That is a design limitation, and it was known. The question the NTSB raised, and that has never been federally addressed, is why the threshold was set at a level that could not account for that limitation. The analyst was working within the system he was given. The system itself was the problem. The analyst marks the alert non-critical and moves on. The train keeps moving. 20 miles later, the final sensor, 253 degrees above ambient. The alarm reaches the crew directly. The engineer brakes immediately. But 150 cars and 18,000 tons do not stop in time. The axle separates. The car leaves the track. East Palestine burns. The analyst did not cause this crash. He followed the rules he was given. The question worth asking is who wrote those rules and why the threshold was set where it was. Because someone made that call. And that decision has a cost. You just watched what it looked like. Here's the part that should make you angry. This was not the first time. 4 months before East Palestine, October 2022, Sandusky, Ohio, a different Norfolk Southern train. A wayside sensor flags a hot bearing. The alert goes to the help desk in Atlanta. The help desk tells the crew to keep going. 4 miles later, the train derails. Molten paraffin wax across city streets. Federal Railroad Administration. Records confirm the cause. The same overheated bearing the sensor had flagged. This was documented and reported by ProPublica after reviewing federal records. After Sandusky, Norfolk Southern changed nothing. Not the help desk policy, not the alarm threshold, not the sensor spacing, not the single analyst setup. Nothing. And the Federal Railroad Administration had already opened an investigation into Norfolk Southern after Sandusky. That investigation was still open when East Palestine happened. The company had a prior incident on record. The regulator was actively investigating. The pattern was in writing. And 4 months later, East Palestine became the second data point, with a town of 4,700 people as the cost. Now here's the number that puts all of this in context. In 2022, the year Sandusky happened, Norfolk Southern returned over $4 billion to shareholders through buybacks and dividends. And that same year, one person working from home with no assigned breaks was watching the sensors for the entire country. 4 billion out. One person watching. You do not need me to connect those dots for you. Around this time, Norfolk Southern's CEO was asked directly in a Senate hearing by senators from both parties whether the company would stop buybacks until safety improvements were completed. The answer on the public record.
I will commit to continuing to invest in safety.
The question was not answered. That exchange is in the public record. You can look it up. Everything we have covered so far leads here. After the crash, ProPublica obtained Norfolk Southern's internal rulebook, the actual written policy for the Wayside Detector Help Desk. And what was inside that document is where this stops being about bad luck. The policy stated that help desk employees were officially permitted to tell train crews to disregard a sensor alarm, when, in the employee's own judgment, they believed it was safe to proceed. No data requirement, no second opinion, no supervisor approval, no record of reasoning. One person, one call, and if it goes wrong, no paper trail leading back to who made the decision. This was not a gap in the policy. This was not something that slipped through. This was written, approved, and operational. Someone designed this system. Someone approved it. Someone decided this was acceptable. Now ask yourself something. If you were designing a safety system, and you wanted to make sure that when something goes wrong, accountability would be difficult to trace, what would that system look like? It would look like this. That is not a conspiracy. That is just what the documents say, and the documents say enough. Here is where things stand right now. Trains carrying vinyl chloride and butyl acrylate, the same chemicals central to the East Palestine disaster, still pass through that town more than twice a week on average, according to an analysis by the Howard Center for Investigative Journalism. The Railway Safety Act, written specifically in response to East Palestine, was introduced in 2023. Failed. Reintroduced in 2024. Failed again. It has not passed. 3 years and 3 days after East Palestine, 65 Norfolk Southern cars derailed again. The same sensor threshold structure. The same single analyst model. The same policy that allows one person to wave off an alert. Still in place. East Palestine did not fix the system. It exposed it. And right now, tonight, that same system is running on tracks near you. There is more to this story. The decision made 3 days after the crash, above a residential town, that the NTSB later found was unnecessary. The experts, who were on the scene and were never called, into the room where the decision was made. The information that was withheld. The next part of this story is the one that made me most uncomfortable to research. After everything in this video, do you think East Palestine was an accident or the predictable result of a system built to prioritize something other than safety? If this made you think, subscribe and hit the bell. Don't miss out on the next content. Subscribe, like, and turn on notifications.